She has a St. Patrick's show coming up this Sunday at the Phoenix Theater in Uptown with a name like Bailey Murphy. She better have a St. Patrick's show. Please welcome to the show, Bailey Murphy.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Thank you to PayGap. Thank you for all of you for being here. How are we doing tonight? You wouldn't be a real comic if you don't ask that question. So I want to thank Carolyn personally, actually, because today marks my 1 year of doing stand-up consistently every single month for the last year since my last time in PayGap. And that is all because of her. Buffy, you're here.
I am here.
Do you want to take over my set? I'll still get paid, right?
I don't think you know this, but I don't tell jokes.
You know, you live in this world, everyone's telling a joke. So I am turning 35 this year. Thank you. When I told my friend, they go, my condolences. And I guess it was a man. Yes, I set his car on fire. But I feel like when you turn 35, you know, you come to a lot of like realizations in your life. You start, thinking about, where you are in your career, where you are in your life, like, are you traveling enough? Do you have good friends? Things like that. And you start thinking about, the long train of inherent, like, trauma that runs in your family. And one thing that I noticed is, like, the generation below us is all about the therapy. They never had a problem with therapy. They always were like, yeah, let's go to therapy. They never had to be convinced to go to therapy. The generation above me is like, let's make wine our personality. And then my generation, I'm a millennial, and I feel like we were kind of like, we can have it all. I can go to therapy and then celebrate going to therapy by buying a case of wine. You don't have to choose. What do you think, I'm spending all my money on my kids? The generation above us made sure that I can't afford kids. But don't get me wrong, my mom was a single mom. She worked too hard. She loved her kids. She never stopped. No Reba fans? That sucks. I was gonna sing for you, but apparently you won't appreciate it. That's fine, you can catch me at the saloon later. But she was a single parent, she didn't make it look fun. But then my grandma, she was a single parent who drank too hard and would drop her kids off at the nanny and sometimes forget she had kids. There was actually one time, so my grandma literally was so wealthy that she was able to not only have a nanny, but bring her kids to her nanny's house for significant periods of time. And the only thing she had to do to get that rich was get divorced. But there was a time where she brought all of her children, she had 5 children, to the nanny's house, and they were there for, I think, a couple of days. And my grandma got her driver to bring her back to pick up her children, and she got home and realized that she only had 4 children, not 5. And so she went back to pick up my mom, who was maybe a baby infant at the time, maybe a toddler. And one thing I should have mentioned, the nanny has 2 big German shepherds. And she gets there to pick up my mom, and these German shepherds have decided this is their baby now, and they're not letting my grandma anywhere near her child. Can you imagine being such a bad parent that you lose custody to a dog? Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. But and my 35 is not like my mom or my grandma's 35. I'm doing pretty well for 35. Do you want to know how well I'm doing? I have a Disney Plus account. And it's mine. I paid for it myself. I give out that password all on my own. I get the threatening emails that are like, we're gonna cut down to 1 household. And I'm like, I'm paying $10 extra. I want everyone to watch Disney Channel originals. Plus another thing that I get to do, my grandma had to get a babysitter to drink wine. I just have to wake up in the morning. From the last time I was drinking wine. It's no big deal. But one thing that's very also interesting about my grandmother, and I didn't realize that this whole set was going to be about my grandma until this morning. And when I told my mom, because she couldn't be here tonight, when I told my mom, she just goes, And I was like, oh yeah, unresolved trauma right there. But one thing about spending most of your life drinking away all of your alimony and your child support is that it kind of screws with your head a little bit, and it makes you a little bit of a terrible person. A few years ago, my uncle passed away, and we were at his funeral, and my grandma turns to me, and we're at the church reception. We're having like ambrosia salad, and she turns to me and she goes, "Bailey, do you want to see my new purse?" And I was like, "Sure." And she pulls out her purse and she goes, "It holds 2 bottles of wine." And I was like, "Okay. Do you have any now? Because otherwise I don't know why you're telling me this." And she was like, "Well, now because my grandma lives in Chicago and she doesn't work. She spends all day riding around on the L train. And she said, now when I'm riding on the L train, I don't have to get off the L to go to a bar because I have it in my purse." She did this at a funeral. But she's not a stone cold hard bitch. It wasn't her son, it was her son-in-law. So I guess that's fine. On the way to the cemetery, we're in the car. She's sitting next to my cousin who has just lost her dad. And she keeps going, "Ugh, they've torn down so many trees here. They used to have so many trees. Do you guys remember when they had trees?" And my cousin just turns to her and goes, "Please stop talking." But yeah, she's still got some decent qualities. So my sister just had a baby recently, and my mom called her to let her know that she had a great grandson. And she said his name is Robert Jeremiah. And Robert Jeremiah are the names of both my grandfathers. Robert is my mom's dad, so my grandmother's ex-husband's name. And I heard like this pause, and I was like, and my mom said there was a twinge of excitement in her voice at first. And I was like, "That's great. Why?" And she goes, "I think she thought because his name is Robert, she was about to get alimony from an infant." My mom's a lawyer, so she cut that off really fast. But then when she realized that she was getting nothing in return for this child being born, she just goes, "Well, that's not a name I would have picked." And then when she finally called my sister to be like, "How are you doing? I heard you just had a baby. How's that going?" My sister told her how she was doing, and then my grandma goes, "I had pneumonia recently." My sister was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. When?" And she was like 2 months ago. "And you didn't call me." She had a baby 2 months ago. She was busy. Whatever. But one thing that happened to me personally was a few years ago. My apartment burned down. I had a house fire. I was actually doing stand-up at the time when this happened, so it took me a while to get over the weird fear that my life is going to collapse while I'm telling jokes. That's why it took me a while to come back to stand-up. But it was also on my birthday, and my grandma called me the next day. I love your reactions. Everything I'm telling, you're just like, "My God." You're like, "Are these jokes? Because they don't seem very funny." It's okay, if you haven't met a comedian yet, but this is how we handle our trauma. It was my birthday, so my grandma called me. My grandma always calls me the day after my birthday. I have no idea why. She knows when my birthday is. I think she just thinks that I won't answer, but joke's on her, I don't answer anyway. But she calls me, and she goes, "Your mom told me about your apartment, and I'm so sorry." And then she goes, "But life goes on." She's great. And what's funny is that I've been in therapy for a long time, and part of in my therapy journey was me realizing that my grandma is just a bad person and you can't change her. And I think that my mom is dealing with the fact that her mother is a bad person with the fact that I make jokes about her mother being a bad person. So it works out for everyone. But another thing about being 35, I'll switch a little. I feel like it made you guys all really sad. One thing about being 35 too is that I'm in this weird nostalgic point of my life where I'm watching a lot of movies and shows from when I was a child. And they were the movies and the shows that I watched all the time that brought me a lot of comfort, and I'm realizing how messed up they are. Has anyone seen The Parent Trap?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how they were like, you know what's a really good idea is let's get divorced, split up our twins, and not tell them about each other. And then sell this as a kids movie. And be like, it's the romantic story of the year where these two twins meet at summer camp, switch, and their parents don't notice? You don't know which child is yours? And then we bring them back together and somehow make this like, you know, bi-continental relationship work. Which, and I also don't know if any of you know how custody laws work. I can't imagine a judge being like, yeah, let's separate the twins. Good call. Don't forget to rip that wedding photo in half. And then, you know that whole thing of, what's it called? The Roman Empire thing, where it's like a thing that you think about all the time, every day? Yeah, and then like for a lot of men, I guess it's the Roman Empire. For me, it's Titanic. The movie, not the ship. And I don't know why. I could watch that movie every day and never get tired of it because there's so much to unpack. Like, let's think about the fact that Rose, for example, is, she's, you know, she hates her life and she's about to throw herself off this ship, right? And what's the first thing that Jack says to her? Have you ever been to Wisconsin? Like, was he going for the, I'm just gonna catch her off guard, maybe she'll forget what she's doing type of question? And like the fact that we were told that this movie was so inappropriate because it had boobs in it, but not because there was like a violent sinking ship and like tons of people dying. No, the boobs are the problem. Always the boobs are the problem. That's what I learned from living in the 90s and the early 2000s. Another movie that I can't get enough of is The Goonies. I had a really bad weekend a couple weekends ago, and for some reason it's the only movie I wanted to watch. Which is really funny because it's like not a very happy movie. Like, it's these teenagers who are trying to find pirate treasure so that they don't lose their house. Like, they're about to be foreclosed on because someone wants to build a country club, which I feel like that movie was trying to make us very anti-capitalist at a young age. But they're like, I know how we can fix this problem. Let's go find some pirate treasure. And then they're being chased down by murdering thieves who are wanted by the FBI. But you want to know what the best part about that movie is? It's the ending. And you want to know why? Because Chunk, who was kidnapped by these people, and then tied to a chair, and then found his friends, and rescued them all, got through all this trauma, and what did his parents do? They brought him a Domino's pizza. You survived hell, you best believe I want my Domino's pizza. That's the only way to get through something. And watching that as an adult, I was like, oh God, parents who get it! But then they found all the jewels in like the little sack, and they were like, we don't have to leave because we found these 5 pieces of jewelry. They're gonna save all of our houses. I also love watching with my partner because she's a really big history buff, and so like at the end when the ship is floating away, she just goes, yeah, because the tide wouldn't bring that in, and you couldn't get the rest of the treasure, which is what you actually need to save these houses. But I don't care, I love it anyway. I love finding plot holes and then being like, it's not going to change my ability to love this movie to the ends of the earth. But what did we learn today? I'm 35. Not 35 yet, I will be. And that means that my personality is wine and therapy. And I have my mom and grandma to thank for that. And I love analyzing films that apparently no one watches. But now you're never going to be able to watch Titanic the same way ever again. Thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Bailey Murphy.